The most difficult thing is that the US Pavilion is funded privately. There's not one penny of government money. That means all of this money has to be raised privately, and that is an excruciatingly difficult thing to do. So the lack of available funds makes building a pavilion harrowing at best. But actually, in an architectural sense, this is a very daunting task. The idea that an architect, just an ordinary architect, is going to attempt to represent in a kind of balanced way all of America in a single building is, it's a nearly impossible problem. And so, I took the approach that America, like all countries, is an imperfect country. But if we express the aspirations, the best of America, the highest aspirations of America, that would really read as the kind of optimistic, innovative, changing society that I think America really is.
Most challenging in our construction is, of course, this big cantilever. It's along 30 meters over the entrance. So the people who are coming to our pavilion hopefully stay in line to our pavilion to see the contents inside. They will see the mirroring in the stainless steel construction of undercovering of this cantilever. So I think it's the most spectacular part of the construction, of course most complicated. But now we already have the end of montage time of this also very important and very complicated part. So I'm looking for finishing of the pavilion, hope that it will be all in time.
There's a lot of difficult parts in this construction process because it's a temporary construction, temporary exhibition building. For me, we are really focused on to create a roof line, create a very light roof system to have the exhibition space underneath without any column, with a big span space. So in this case, we established a roof by defining a very complicated and accurate timber roof structure system. So from the bottom to up, which is the timber structure system and the waterproof layer, a system of bamboo supporters, and the bamboo paneling system, which is done by parametric design. So for us, it's very difficult and it's a challenge to have this roof to be built in a very precise and very accurate way. So we are very happy to working with the Italian local architect. We had a very good cooperation, and the project went very well.
The most difficult construction challenge that we faced on the whole build, there was two really. The biggest one was time. To have enough time to think and to dream about the piece, to dream about the concept, then to design it, to make sure that it could work. And then the second most difficult challenge was probably the construction of the hive. It's a really large piece. We want it to be as delicate and as light and as ethereal as possible. So a lot of time and effort with some amazing engineering went into the process. And this was allied with some fantastic fabrication through a company called Stage 1. There's over 170,000 parts in the hive itself, each one of them individually numbered and processed. So it's like a giant Lego Meccano kit. So everything had to be kind of prefabricated back in the UK and brought to site in sequence. It's a very tall, it's a very long, thin, narrow sort of site, not a great deal of space to work on. So logistically, to try and get everything there in sequence to make sure that everything fitted, that was the biggest challenge. But again, I think if you have good people around you, and we know that we can do it, it's been fine. And then the other thing is what we wanted to do was to almost take this slice of the UK countryside and bring it over into Milan to create this wildflower meadow. And again, what we wanted to do is to have this meadow in full flourish at the beginning of May. So we had to work with, again, some amazing landscape architects to make sure this happens. So when it actually opens on the beginning of May, there are flowers, there are grasses, And again, we've worked some amazing nurseries over here in Milan to help achieve that. And it's the trees are now in blossom, the flowers are just about to come in bloom, and yeah, it's looking very pretty.
Well, indeed, well, there are certain issues with a pavilion designing and also building it in a very short time. But most importantly, as we deal with living plants in our planet and at the same time have to construct the building surrounding the little plant island, you know, we had to work very deliberately on the staging of the planting and the building surrounding the plants. But indeed, we have had an incredible team doing so finally we made it.
As my team has said me that the main problem was the time. The time, we have a very short time to do all the works. You know? That's the main point. Of course, the net was a very important challenge for us all also to do, but the time, you know, it's very tight time for us to do everything.
I think that the challenge that all the architects have in this pavilion was the time. That was for us the big challenge, the time, the short time. Because I have to say it, we feel so comfortable building here in Italy. We feel at home.
In reality, as my partner said, we had to overcome basically several challenges, especially the very tight budget, the very tight schedule of construction, due to the fact that we had some difficulties to approve paperwork with the Italian system, differences between cultural, especially for approvals, and we had a special complete wooden structure, and there were some issues regarding foundations, but we overcome. So the tight schedule of construction was the main challenge that we had to fulfill. But in the end, everything's okay. We are on schedule and we are happy to finalize it.
I think the most difficult challenge of not only our pavilion, but all of them, is really time. These are very complex buildings, and actually to be done and developed in a relatively short period of time. So time is the key thing.
We only had 5 months to build it, so our difficulty was to have just the minimum amount of construction details that will allow us to do this rigorous, simple and strong, memorable, I hope, shape, and provide at the same time the richness of color, textures, and even spaces or spatial experiences to make a playful and interesting experience to visit the pavilion.
The Italy Pavilion is not a temporary pavilion, but it's a complex building that was built in 1 year with 6 months of a project process. So the real challenge was to be able to construct such a complex and high-tech technology building in such a short time. Explaining the most interesting technology of the pavilion, we can speak about the skin, the concrete biodynamic skin of the building, that is a product of Italcementi with more than 700 panels, one different to each other, that together they create this unique and particular texture.
Was actually to build a structure that it looks permanent as it is, but at the same time is completely flat pack and unmountable. The whole pavilion is built to be demounted and shipped in 50 or 100 containers.
I think it was the ground, simply. It was in Milan, it's raining heavily every day, last year, this year, and we had really strong problems to get the ground and to get on the ground with the machines. Everything was sinking in the mud, and for that reason I think this was the most critical point to find a good starting point.